Better late than never. Better late than never. It is 8:35. I was gonna wait till 9, but I said, you know what? I don't think I want to be up that long. So here we are. It is our Sunday live stream. We are here, Casual Sunday. We're going to talk about some comic books. Um, we're gonna first, we're gonna talk a little bit about the the whole shenanigans about that video game too. Now, I don't necessarily do video games, but I watched a lot of the responses to the guy snapping about the video game, and people are very perturbed, and people have a lot of opinions on it. Since I figure it's a hot topic, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring a little bit. I don't know a lot of the people talking about it, but I've seen quite a couple of videos on it, a couple of people, talking about the guy being a spurg and everything. But I mean, it is what it is. We'll talk a little bit about it. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it though. I don't even really know what the game was called. I think it's called Starfield. So I guess we'll discuss a little bit of that. Uh, ISOM number 2 from Eric July has been released, and I've gotten my copy of it. What did I think about it? Well, stay tuned and you'll find out. We'll also oh no, where I put my oh no, I think the dog ate my homework, which is an excuse of I lost my list. Oh no, I didn't hear this. All right, so we also are going to talk about Zom 100, which is a new anime. I also watched Dead Man Wonderland, which was interesting. I think it's the second time I watched that. I guess I don't know if we ever talked about No Guns Life on this show, even though I had planned to, the entire manga series. Um, let's see. What else? What else? There's got to be some other things to discuss as well. But let's start with the the Starfield incident. I guess since it's a hot topic, let's just jump into it. Apparently, one of the guys who does the video game streams, Babyface versus Heel, he was playing a video game. Then one of the options on the game was to do your own pronouns or whatever the hell. More than just are you a girl or a boy, but are you a a more than just he and she or whatever. And people were very surprised that this video game featured, I guess, neo pronouns or what he called modern day Californian shit. And that really, people were upset about that. That he snapped and he started yelling about this. And folks were like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And at first I was like, I kind of agree. Um, at first I was like, yeah, well, what difference does it make? You know, if you bought a comic book or a video game or a movie, and it's a modern comic book, video game, or movie, you had to know this kind of stuff was going to be in it. This is the kind of stuff they put in the stuff now. Had to know that. At the same time, though, I watched it develop, the story that is, and it came out that people were trying to mod the game, and they were banning modifications of the game that took out this function where you could no longer toggle pronouns, which of course is another thing that you would expect if you've been following the culture war pretty closely. You had to know that was going to happen. You know, like nothing so far has been a surprise. A guy who does video game and various other pop culture reviews comes across something left wing. It pissed him off, and he ranted about it online. The people who are for that then defended it. The people who were against it then rallied about and defended him. So to me, it came across as being it's just modern day culture war stuff, which is pretty much 90% of what they yell about on the internet anyway. But is he right to be upset about this? And my thing is, I think it's such a big deal now. It's in terms of they feel like they pissed off the right people. Like there's a certain thing as pissing off the right people in the world that is inhabited by the folks who are pro pronouns. Let's put it like that. They don't care that you're upset. In fact, the fact that you're upset is the goal. So basically, the fact that you sold it and yelled about it online is exactly what they wanted. That was the reason what they put it in the game. Not so that people can actually make up their own pronouns or whatever the hell it was. It was to piss off people who don't believe in all this neo pronouns crap, right? That was the point. So if they put down a mousetrap, are they really surprised that they caught a mouse? They're not. Trust me. This was a feature. This was not a bug. This was not an accidental thing, right? Light says that Starfield is cool. I don't know. I don't play video games, so I really don't have a dog in the fight. But video games has been allowing you to pick whether you want to be a boy or a girl for years and years and years. It was never a problem. Once it starts becoming, you could be a male. All of a sudden, you want to play as a female for nothing but to see if the game is going to be any different. And the game might not be any different. You just might like the female character better, or whatever the case may be. And I've seen people say that we should just dial it down to just male and female. If you're a trans person, you can just play as the opposite gender. Then it's not a problem. It's all the other neo pronouns, the zers and the they thems and all this kind of stuff that people are kind of like, what the hell is going on here? And I think that everybody is playing the role they have decided to play when it comes to these issues. The guys who are offended by the new culture are offended by the new culture. The defenders and creators of new culture have decided they're going to defend and create new culture. It's that is what it is. It ain't about the game anymore. The game doesn't matter. Most everything about the game has come to the guy screaming about pronouns. So, while I personally don't support the whole neo pronoun concept, it's a video game, and it's not the worst thing they put in video games. I can tell you that much. Making up your own pronouns in some kind of space odyssey game or whatever the hell it is ain't the worst thing they've ever done. It will not be the worst thing they've ever done. They're going to do worse to you. As soon as they figure out how to trigger you even more, they're going to do that. The problem is people can keep giving these guys $60, $70 thinking, oh, this time it'll be different. And it's the same thing with the comic books and the movies and everything. At this point, you have to ask the people who do the reviews, who are going online screaming and yelling and getting recorded, hey, you know that this is like part of it is your fault, right? This is the Professor Geek issue that he noted very well a long time ago. So a lot of these guys, they're outraged by a lot of this stuff, but they constantly pay to go see it. They constantly pay to go see these movies. They constantly pay for these video games, and then they get offended and are surprised and upset, and they tell you how terrible it is. But they buy it anyway, because the outrage is worth it. The clicks are worth it. And it's become a thing where people will purchase terrible media on purpose for the purpose of talking about it online, and then are surprised that this stuff keeps getting recreated. And so Professor Geek said a long time ago, consume stories responsibly. Don't give, or as the new pub industry has said, don't give money to people who hate you. They continue to do it. The video games, the comic books, even some of the pro wrestling stuff. They continue to give money to people who hate them. To them, it's not a bug; it's a feature. Pissing you off is part of the marketing. It's not even about whether the game is good anymore. It's all about pissing off the right people. So, to me, it's not really. None of this is a surprise so far. All right, so that wasn't on my list, but I started off with that. Nothing too outrageous. Just I agree with the guy in theory, but I refuse to be the dude screaming about pronouns online because I already know what they're doing. Have you ever played SmackDown versus Raw? Yeah, of course. I couldn't remember. Look, here's the thing. After I think Here Comes the Pain, they all become the same game as far as I'm concerned. And that's when I think the WWE video games became almost essentially no different than the 2K and the Madden franchise, where there's very, very little difference in between the difference between the games. It was just not that much of a difference as far as I was concerned. So it's hard for me to just know, oh yeah, this game versus this game. It's like I don't know. What was the major differences really? I didn't notice any major differences. Sorry. But I don't know if they still do voice acting in the video games. I know the wrestlers used to do voice acting in the games. I haven't seen any of the games recently where guys have been doing the voice acting. So very interesting. Let's see what else we got on here. All right, let's talk about ISOM number 2. How about this? So Eric D. July, who has been a favorite on this channel for a long time. He's released his ISOM number 2 comic book. It was released this week. I got my copy a couple of days ago. Probably yesterday, I think. That it was. I didn't get one of the first copies because I missed the window for the campaign, but I got like one of the next group of comics. This thing was like $50. I think it was 35 for the book, maybe 10 or something like that, 10, 15 for shipping, handling. The cover is nice. I think the second cover. I think this is. I don't know. I don't know if it's the first cover or the second. I'm not sure. But I have to tell you, I do not like the comic book. The art is fine. It's kind of bland, but the art is fine. I really mostly don't like the story. And it's not that the story is bad. As much as I feel like I'm halfway through this thing or 2/3 through it, and I don't care. And that's a very difficult thing to say. And he is not a long time author. Like he hasn't been doing this a lot. He's released 2 comic books, and mostly it's off the strength of he wants to do something better than the industry has put out thus far. And to get people involved in comic books again, he loves the medium. But I think he definitely needs to like to go to a writing boot camp, right? Because a lot of this book is just people standing around talking. And yes, you have to build the scenario. You have to build from the first book into the second, but I don't feel like there's a lot happening in this book. You know, I just don't feel like it's. I really don't want to finish it, if we're being honest. Like, it's not like the most awful book that I've ever read or anything like that. It's just boring more than anything. You know, like I just nothing about it really kind of jumps out at me as being, yo, this is awesome or whatever. It just feels like they're telling the story, but they're kind of I think some of the panels are a little uninteresting and unnecessary. So I don't really like the book. I like the guy who made it. The creator is fine. But will I pay another $35 for another Rippaverse book? Probably not. This is probably that's and I was kind of on the fence about the first one, and I figure it's his first comic book. He'll come around. And I still feel that way now. Like, I think he'll get better. You get better at things as you go. But at that price, I really would rather not pay $35 for another comic book. $50, because you have to pay for shipping and handling, and for it to be an incredibly mid book. You know, and a story that I don't care about, and characters which I don't really care about, stakes which I don't really care about because everything is moving so slowly that it's almost as if the stakes don't matter anyway. So Isom, if you don't know, it's a guy who's coming out of he's coming out of retirement, I guess you could say. He was a superhero who had quit, and in the second book, at least you get the explanation of why he quit. So you get a little flashback of something terrible happening that caused Isom to quit, and it showed you why him reappearing in book one matters. At the same time, though, it's seemingly the only thing he does in the fucking book so far. And I've been reading. I'm on page. I haven't finished it, so is it unfair for me to talk about it this way? Not really. I'm on page. I don't know what page this is, but he's just now getting his new suit and putting it on, and it feels like the book is almost over. I give him credit for putting in the effort. You can tell that he tries. You don't think he's just throwing shit out there and it's garbage. But he doesn't know how to plot. The plot's too slow. It's too many characters being introduced, and it feels like the initial conflict is nowhere near finished yet. Like, he's up the stakes from the first book, where he's fighting sort of human mutants kind of thing, or it's just guys with super strength or whatever. So now there's sort of aliens or something like that. So there's like aliens that he's fighting, which is okay. But the simple story of the guy came back to save a young lady, that has not wrapped up. And he seemed to have gone on about his day, not having found the young lady. And we're just kind of like, okay. So it starts telling the story about, introducing new characters and how they're going to play into the story and what they do. And that's all fine. But I don't feel like I genuinely give a shit about the character that has been kidnapped in this story. The superhero, you understand that he has a flaw. He's, I might as well tell the story a little bit. When he was a superhero, he failed to save someone. He fought against an opponent he couldn't beat. The opponent made him feel powerless and useless and ended up killing somebody right in front of him. He took it as a personal failure. and so he stopped becoming a superhero. And so book one is him being pulled back into the superhero life, and you see the story is basically him coming to grips with having to come back into being a superhero again, and the danger and the chaos and everything that comes with it, which on its face is good. I just feel like it takes too long, you know. Like we can. Part of this is you have a certain amount of real estate and to tell a story, and somebody who could have, I don't know, helped him plot the story could have given him an idea that maybe the plot was moving too slowly. Maybe there's too many panels of people sitting around talking. Maybe there's a little too many panels of explaining what's going on. Like I don't think, at least not so far, they have not fully explained what his power set is and all this kind of stuff, which is typical in like in stories. Sometimes they give all that stuff away way too fast. But when it comes to sort of amateur comic books, I have read better. You know, for a long time, people were talked about diversity in comics, or your boy Zach. They talked about how terrible his comic books were, but at least there was stuff happening. You know, there was guys. Uh, there was guys shooting up shit and blowing up shit. That's just kind of stuff happening. The characters were kind of one note in terms of they're just generic action guys to a degree, but there's movement. There's always interesting, angles. There's always, you see how the characters develop, and there's always felt like there was stuff happening. So I bought a couple of Richard Myers comic books, and I think I bought three of them. I think I bought maybe three or four, because I bought uh, at least the first two that he did. And I bought the first Iron Sights. So what was the first two books that were called? The series that he did, Jawbreakers. I did the first two Jawbreakers. I'm pretty sure. I think I maybe did the first three. Yeah, up to God King. I did the first three Jawbreakers, and I did the first Iron Sights. And then I was like, I cannot buy too many more of these expensive comic books, because you're supporting the artist at that point in time. And by artist, I don't just necessarily mean the person who's drawing the comic book. I also mean the people who are writing it. You're supporting them because you like them at that point, you know? And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You want to create an alternative. So even though Isom, I don't think is the best comic book, he might actually have an idea on how to help other people, you know? And it's an inspiring concept that he was able to be so successful. But generally speaking, I do not like the comic book, generally speaking. All right. But I can't say that about the Jawbreakers books. At least when I was reading them, they were fine. They weren't great, but they weren't bad. Isom is a book, I'm just reading it. I'm just kind of like, okay. I'm waiting for something to fucking happen. Right. Um, it seems to have, we got to the modern comic book where there's a lot of standing around talking, and I can't stand that. When you go back, especially if he's an old comic book head too, which he's a much older. I'm an older person than he is, but he probably is steeper into the comic book lore than I am. You had to realize that even if it was just him beating up muggers in a gas station or something like that, it would probably work better for the story, for there to be movement of some kind, to feel like, okay, he's getting his bearings back. And I think that might be one of the things that was in the story the first time, where I think he got his ass kicked by a guy and he had to come back and beat him up because he's like, okay, I got to get back in the swing of things. That'd have been fine. Like if they just showed us, I think that Isom failed somebody was murdered right in front of him because he wasn't strong enough, or he didn't know enough about his powers, or he was just overwhelmed. And now he quit, and then he learned the value of not quitting. And then he's going to come back, and he's going to be different this time. He's going to go out there, he's going to become more experienced. He's going to be more alert. He's going to be less lackadaisical or whatever. And you show him, analyzing his failures and how he's going to, analyzing the failure that he experienced and how he's going to overcome it. But I think generally speaking, there's nothing offensive about it. It's just slow and nothing's happening. Like that's the biggest problem, is that it's very, very slow. Now, I haven't finished it. It might finish strong, and I'm probably about 2/3 through the book. So it might finish strong, but for right now, I wouldn't buy another one. Let's put it like that. Would I go out there, and I do know that he was criticized a lot for his writings, that people have but they did that a lot to Diversity in Comics too. Richard Meyer, they made fun of his writing and the art and all this kind. I mean, you have to. I always said, like, he is an amateur writer. He's bootstrapping this thing. He's not hiring other people to write the story. He's writing it himself. So you have to look into it and say, I don't know if he's ever written anything before. He needs help with the plot, though. There are certain things that should be done in a certain number of chapters. And you should take into account that there's a lot of people standing around doing nothing, a lot of talking. He's also doing a lot of building for the universe. So because it was so successful, there's going to be a lot of branch outs and other characters getting their own books and stuff like that, which is fine, but you have to get me to care about these characters and their role in the universe and what they can do and all this kind of stuff before we do that, So I feel like we haven't quite gotten over the hump that I know and care about and invested in Isom first, before we start talking about the entire universe and how are you going to follow this character and that character and their story or whatever. You have to first really get people invested in the first couple of characters at the very least. And I don't feel like I'm really all that invested. If you go back to like Milestone, when Milestone first was created, and Static Shock was one of the first characters that they put out, they really did a good job of making you care about Static Shock and what makes Static Shock interesting. How he stands out from other superheroes. Things happened in his book. There was trauma in his book. There was different things like that. We're talking about somebody who had written comic books for decades, who came up with the Milestone universe, right? The Dakota-verse, as they call it. You're talking about a guy who had experience writing comic books, so he knew how to build a universe. He knew how to, you start with one character, and even to this day, it's the one character that has thrived from the Milestone universe. And then you slowly but surely introduce other characters that operate in that same universe. Icon, Hardware, I forget he had a group, I forget what they were called. Blood Syndicate, that's what they were called. And they do crossovers sometimes, but you focused on a main character in this universe. You cared about him and his stories and his plight. And then you slowly but surely introduce other people. And I don't feel like we've done that yet with Isom. I feel like everything is moving entirely too slow. And it's almost like a movie that knows it's going to get a sequel, because it starts telling you too much about other characters rather than taking that real estate and focusing on Isom. But then again, it might all make sense in the end. So I don't know. Be back next week for part 2 of my Isom review, because right now I ain't feeling it. I figured it. I'm just kind of like, I'm good. I don't. All wishes to the man, all well wishes, but I probably will not be coming back for number 3 or doing whatever it is that other thing he's doing. Probably not. All right. So WG Phil says the comics gay crowd likes pumping out multiple variant covers and trying to add perks. Yeah, they keep upping their costs by having all the different artists do different covers and all this kind of stuff. It's coming across a lot like the regular comic book industry. You know, I'm going to have 500 different covers for the same comic book, and then I have to charge X amount of money for the comic book. Like, yeah, you probably could have saved yourself some cash by doing, I don't know, 2 covers, if that, if it's really necessary to do 2, and that's it. You could do pretty much 1 cover until you become popular. Like Common America is another really good Comics Gate series. I love Common America. I don't order it online because I'm too far behind for that. I buy Common America out of the comic book store. I order it through my shop on Comic Hub. So I absolutely read Common America. I think it's fun. You know, when EVS was making fun of it for, being a comic book for girls or something like that, that's just a guy who's in competition with somebody and wanting to take the piss. It's like, yeah, it was clear from the beginning that it takes homage from like Sailor Moon, and they're traditionally feminine girls. So it's a traditionally feminine girl comic book. Which is what everybody said that they wanted. Everybody said, hey, we want girls to act like girls in our comic books. So when Mark Pellegrini and Tim Lim wrote Common America, they write the girls like girls. There's some preoccupation with boys. There's some, preoccupation with, how they should be and, appear in the world. There's the main character is into fashion, so that's part of her job. So that's part of the world is fashions and photo shoots and different things like this, which allows you to dress up the characters. They draw them with big titties, so that helps. They're not flat chested, but they're also just good characters that you actually care about. They do a good job of getting over the characters. And it made sense to me how they wrote it. And I think that they made the characters likable. That was something that everybody has a story. Not too many people are really sure how they want the characters to come across in the story. While Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini were smart, they pushed the characters. And so now nobody cares about the story. They just like the characters. And then you learn about the story as it goes on. You become like, oh, okay, we're taking these characters that I like and we're putting them in stories that accentuate different characteristics, that play off of many other things. Like I've just read Common America book 5, the volume 5, where they introduce sort of the Zenny Renegers, which is a ripoff of the Power Rangers, and they're like a villain stable. And it's fun, Is it perfect? No. But it's of the comic gates stuff that comes out, it's the best shit. There's no surprise why Common America is sort of the standard when it comes to Comicsgate material. The previous champion probably was the oh shit, not the Red Rooster books. I don't know if it was called Red Rooster. I think whatever they were called, the Brightwisers. Not their book. They had another book that was under their umbrella that was done based off of a real person. It was a fictionalized version of his real story, and that was actually very good. That comic book series. It's slipping my mind. It'll come to me eventually. But that was, and we all know that people started getting really aggy with the Brightwisers. when they made the deal with Walmart and they, sold stuff through Walmart before they actually gave people who supported the book their stuff first. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot, but they were putting out a comic book, a sort of Western, based off of, oh God, what is his name? I don't want to look, but it's one of the first black based off him, and it was a good comic, just straight up good comic book. And I looked forward to going to Walmart and getting it, so it was like legit the best Comicsgate series for a long time. So he just needs help writing. I think he's going to start doing some stuff with Chuck Dixon, which ought to help him quite a bit in terms of helping him become a better writer. And then maybe in a year or two, Eric July will be a better Bass Reeves. Exactly. Yep. There, exactly. That was it. So eventually he'll become a better writer, and I'll probably be able to jump back on when it comes to the Isom Rippaverse. But right now, I'm kind of like, I can't do it. It's just nothing happening in these books, and it's not fun. It's like it's feeling like work reading this thing. But EVS, WG Field says apparently EVS hated Common America / My Hero Academia or Magademia due to being a MAGA book. I don't know. Like I stopped paying attention to EVS a long time ago. When it became clear to me that he was about, and I don't want to piss anybody off, but he seems to be mostly about himself at this point. And getting caught up in his own popularity, I kind of backed away, and I kind of just gave up on the whole Comicsgate thing anyway. It became a lot of it became the pit of vipers that most people, thought that it was going to be. And the Gamergate became the same thing mostly. You join these organizations, these groups. Eventually they turn on each other. They start fighting each other and arguing with each other. Comicsgate was no different. It started being a bunch of guys because they started being competitors. It went from everybody was each other's friend. They all did live streams and stuff together. Everything was fine. And then everybody starts creating their own comic book. And now people are in competition. So now it's like, is your book late? We're going to sit here and spend 10 hours talking about how you can't fulfill your comic book on time, or whatever the case may be, or how terrible your art is. And it's like, oh, I thought everybody was friendly. But I think we can all have a disagreement, I haven't read Doug Ernst's book yet. He said, I don't think so. I don't think I have it, but I heard good things about it. I know he works with Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini, so maybe it's good. I don't think I read it. I don't think I ordered it, but it started coming out a lot at one time, and these books were higher and more expensive than the average comic book, and that started becoming a problem. Now you try to support everybody, and there's people making joke comic books that don't come out for 6 months, and you're paying $50 for it. And it's like, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. And plus, it's all going to be varying in quality. And it's like everybody partners up with Chuck Dixon, and it's like, well, that's great for Chuck, but he can't ghostwrite everything. He can't save everybody's writing. So you're looking at the situation where everybody's like, oh yeah, we're doing great shit with Chuck Dixon. I'm like, okay, great. Well, when he does something, I'll probably pay for it. But everybody else will making sure we're doing it off the love for maybe the first 2 times, but now you actually have to be good. I'm willing to jump on for the love. Hey, I like this guy. I like his opinions. I want to give him an opportunity. Fund his endeavor. It's a donation usually. Like, okay, even if I don't like it, it's a donation. Here's $35, $50 towards your future and what you want to do and the vision that we all have for comic books. But then once you do it 2 or 3 times, it's like, all right, now we're looking at a quality issue. All right, I don't think the quality is there. We're going to back off. It's like what it happened with diversity in comics. It started coming too frequently. Like it started being he's got 3 books going on at one time. And you're like, wait a minute. What? Yeah, I'm not about to fund all of these books now. Wait a minute. So you go from supporting one book because it's his vision, is something he really, really wants to do. I'm like, okay, let's help him make this happen. Let's do that. And then a bunch of other people jumped in, and then you was kind of like, okay, I like this guy. Let's make it happen for him. And then they started saying, oh, yes, we've got 2-3 books already planned. And you're like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. And the only people who are really writing their comic books like they actually have a plan is the Common America team, which is why they continue to get my support. Usually, 2 is probably my limit anyway when it comes to a lot of the Comicsgate books, because they're so expensive. Once you pay for 2 of them, that's pretty much it, So 2 is pretty much my limit anyway, but I also think that Isom 2 is not that good. So at least, but who knows? It might finish strong. We don't know. But I never bought EVS book at all. I just wasn't interested. WG Phil says he gave up on Comicsgate due to it being a circular firing squad, and the books are just as bad or worse than the mainstream or took years to finish. Yeah, that was the big problem, is that it takes so long that when they started doing the Indiegogos and the Kickstarters and all this kind of stuff, if you get in early, you're probably waiting a long time. Like I jumped on the Isom thing after the campaign was over, and I still got the book in a decent amount of time, which is good. Delivery service, very good. But I openly was like, I don't want to pay for this thing and then have to wait 8 months, because then I'm gonna forget. And I still forgot that I had bought Isom. I still forgot that I bought it until it came in the mail. Because I know it took so long for Jawbreakers that I was just kind of like, I figure I wasn't fucking getting it. At that point, I was like, oh my God, it's taking forever. But plus I don't really like ordering shit online anyway. And plus you're paying the friend tax. Because you like the guy, you're paying more for the comic book than the comic book is really worth. Especially when you crack it open and you look at the panels and everything. You're kind of like, would I have bought this book if it was $35 in the comic book shop? No. And so you're doing it, and part of that valuation is going to be you like the guy who made the book. WG Phil says at least the Ripple book is already finished. Most of the Comicsgate guys, only have the concept art and just sit on live streams for years. Yeah, there's a lot of that, and I noticed that very, very early that the book is a side project. That's the one thing about Douglas Ernst that I want to give him and the Common America team, is that once they started doing comic books, they kind of chilled on the videos and everything. They kind of, fell back on YouTube. They still do it, but they don't do a lot of it. And really, the Common America team wasn't really a big part of the Comicsgate YouTube era anyway. They popped up here and there occasionally, but they weren't like in the middle, in the muck of it. And they made an overtly political book with My Hero Macadamia, with them doing spoofs and everything, which I thought was a fun book when I read it. I thought My Hero Macadamia was at least fun because it was meant to be a spoof. So it was fun. But the Common America series is legit good. I haven't read the Black Hops, so I'm not really into the rabbits and all that kind of stuff. But the Common America stuff is at least well written, well drawn. It's delivered at a respectful time for people who order it online. They have ways for me to catch up, even though I think I missed a book here and there. I think I got 1, 2. I think I got 1, 3, 4, and 5. I think they're up to 9 in terms of how many they've done so far. But ordering back issues is a pain in the ass. But it was what it was. But I legitimately enjoy the Common America stuff. That's legit. That's legit fun. The Jawbreaker series were probably fun too, but I don't know. Doug T is strange because he got into the MAGA election grift and got ethered from social media. So that's what happened to him. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all that a lot of this stuff turned into what it was. All right, enough about that. Let's talk about let's. I haven't watched any cartoons. No cartoons. But there's a question in here I want to answer first, and then we're going to move on to modern anime. Prince A.M. Ali, what's your opinion on the Wolf of Wall Street? Is it better than American Psycho? Yes. Typically, I like Wolf of Wall Street better than American Psycho. I think Wolf of Wall Street tells a better story because it's based on a true story. American Psycho is based on a fictional story, and it can be a little confusing if you've never watched it before. I love American Psycho, by the way. But if you talk about which one is a better movie, Wolf of Wall Street is a better movie. Absolutely. Hop, what's your opinion of what Coach Prime Deion Sanders is doing over at Colorado? I don't really. I paid a little attention to Deion Sanders. The one thing that he is doing that I don't like is that he has moved heaven and earth to make sure that his boys play for him as they because apparently he has done this more. He coached them in high school too, or something like that. So he keeps doing this thing where he's dragging his sons along. He's going to force them to be successful. And that he ran off the first quarterback for the team because he wanted his son to be quarterback for the team. And look, that nepotism can only go so far. If you're only quarterback of the team because your dad is the coach, that used to be a bad thing. Now we're looking at it like it's a positive. It's like this guy he's a grown man at this point. He's going to need a coach other than his dad. He needs to learn how to play football for somebody else. Now they got the NIL stuff, which allows him to get paid, so it ought to be fine. So even if he doesn't make it to the NFL, it ought to be fine. But if he's serious about playing football, he certainly should not be playing for his dad his entire football career because his dad's not going to be there forever. He needs somebody who is an unbiased observer of his skill and talent. You can argue that your sons aren't getting the coaching that works for them. You can make that argument. But ultimately, if you make them look like the only reason that they're playing at all is because you are the coach, then the NFL coaches are going to look and be like, we could have had better. We got better quarterbacks than this kid. He might be a good kid. He might even be good for the team. But it's that nepotism issue. Like, is he really going to bench his son? And I think one of the boys actually did play for a different team. He quit that team and then, transferred over to Colorado because his dad, was the coach there. And I'm just kind of, it's weird. Like that stuff used to happen in small towns. You used to see the guy who was quarterback of the team, but he's only the quarterback because his dad's the coach. And we talk about him. We say look, this fucking kid's not that good. It's only because his dad is the coach that he's the quarterback. And then sometimes that's literally the case. It's literally the case. As soon as somebody else is the coach, this kid's just not good enough. That's the one thing about the Deion Sanders experience that I don't like is that I'm glad he's giving his sons the opportunities, but at the same time, he's protecting them. He's not allowing them to grow as athletes on their own. He's babying them. What's he going to do when eventually they try to go to the NFL and people are looking at it like, well, Deion ain't here. Coach Prime ain't here. Then what you going to do? You got to start taking orders from somebody else. What's going to happen at that point? It's like working for daddy your whole life. It's a Stephanie McMahon thing. Sometimes people can get away with it. And, your dad's so successful that you can get away with it. But we already know that unless Deion gets an NFL contract when his sons get old enough to play in the NFL, they're going to be playing for somebody else and they're probably going to sit on the bench. And then it's going to be a big issue. So I'm glad he believes in his sons at the very least, which is good. I'm of course glad that he is, so hands on in their success, which is very good. But you have to at some point back off and let the birds fly on their own, you know. And that element of it I don't like. Now, in terms of how he's coaching the team, or the fact that he left Jackson State to coach Colorado, I don't have a problem with any of that. He left one job for another. People get too tied up in this racial shit, like he owes people something because he's black. Like, he's already a millionaire. He was in the NFL. Why does he all of a sudden? It's like, well, because he's doing a new job and he's a good motivational speaker. That part is true. He was a pastor for a long time. He's also an egomaniac for a long time, and those two things work together. Him being a coach, he's got passion. He's got wisdom. He's played the game, and he knows how to motivate young guys. And sometimes that's a very important element. But we won't know how they're really doing until they start getting into tougher and tougher games. Once they start playing really difficult teams, we'll see how good he really is as a coach. And that's the thing about college football is there's a lot of tomato cans on the schedule. A lot of games where there's just it's easy win after easy win. You blow them out 35-zip, or whatever the hell, and you never really learn anything from that. When you start playing tough teams, bowl level teams, ranked teams, you start seeing how good they really are. So I think Deion Sanders is fine as a coach. I think he's babying his sons, but that's pretty much it in terms of my thoughts on Coach Prime. Is he an egomaniac? Yes, but Deion Sanders has always been an egomaniac. He was that when he played football. Are we surprised? You know, I'm not surprised at all that he behaves the way that he behaves. AJ3, did you see the Max original documentary called BS High? I have not. I don't know what that is. What else we got here? Only good Crow movie was Brandon Lee. Well, there were two Crow movies. At least I think there was at least two. The first one was the Brandon Lee movie, and that was very good. You want to talk about a good Crow? The only good Crow comic book is the first one. The others are not very good. I like the Crow as a concept, though. The Crow as a concept is fantastic. I just think a lot of the execution has not been very good. But the James O'Barr version of the Crow, as it was created, it was very artistic, but you could tell that he was going through it. Because again, the Crow was created when James O'Barr had lost his girlfriend, and he was working through those emotions through that character. So there's a lot of poetry and a lot of other stuff in there that made the character different. But when you start reading like a lot of the sequels to The Crow, I think he worked through a lot of it. And now it's how can I make this thing work? And other people have tried, and the Crow books are okay, but there's really only one good Crow series, and that's the first one. It's very unfortunate, but it's good. Okay, let's talk about Zom 100. There was a manga called Zom 100. I didn't read it because I saw zombies, and I was like, you know what? I do not want to read about zombies no more. I didn't read The Walking Dead, by the way. I just watched the TV show. But zombies, they come in and out of fashion. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that before, but horror concepts come in and out of fashion based off the kind of world that we're living in. Vampires become popular at a certain time, and when certain cultural elements are in alignment, vampires regain popularity. There was Buffy, Then there was Underworld for a time. Then there was a True Blood for a time. And somebody's going to have to recreate vampires in order to be interesting again. Werewolves, mummies. Mummies almost never are interesting. I think the 50s were the last time the mummies were interesting. But zombies come and go. Resident Evil, Walking Dead. You get zombies quite often as a popular horror concept. So when I first saw Zom 100, the manga, I didn't take it seriously, and I just was like, I'm not reading about zombies. I'm good. So it took me a while. I decided I was just going to watch the anime. And so I spent the last week catching up on the anime, seven episodes in the Japanese version. And let me tell you, it is actually kind of delightful. I genuinely like Zom 100. Will I read the manga? Probably not. But watching the series, Tendo is such a likable character. He is great. So Zom 100, for those of you who don't know, there's a zombie breakout in Japan, and a guy who is stressed out at his job. He works in an office, long hours, abused by his boss. His boss is banging the chick that he has a crush on. Life is miserable. And then the zombies attack. And now all of a sudden he doesn't have to go to work. So he's happy that he doesn't have to go to work. All right? So he's just happy he doesn't have this soul-crushing job. And so he's the only guy in the series that is incredibly happy the zombie thing is happening. Even though, some of his friends are dead and all this kind of stuff, he doesn't have to go to work. So he's like, this rules, And I really became a fan of the series when he starts chanting beer, beer, beer. Because he's like, he never had, I don't know what it was about his excitement over beer. Just having a cold beer and being able to relax in his apartment and not have anything to do was excellent. So it was so fun. And seeing him delighted that everybody else he's not fucked over that everybody else is dead or dying. He's not happy about that part. He's happy that the zombie apocalypse has freed him from the soul-crushing work that he was doing. So now, yes, it's difficult now. He has to try to find a way to survive in the zombie apocalypse. But at least he doesn't have to go to work. So it's like that's good shit. And you could tell he was like some kind of they patterned his life off of what people had said about Wall Street. That they work a lot of young people to the bone. They pass out. Some of them, sometimes they kill themselves or whatever, or they dive into drugs and alcohol. There was a documentary done about young people in Wall Street. How, a lot of these Wall Street firms, they chew young people up. You're on call all hours of the day, and people started doing cocaine in order to keep up. And then next you got a expensive drug habit and all this kind of stuff. And you could tell they based Tendo's life off of that. And every day is the same. It's just more abuse. It's just more abuse stacked on top of each other. And then all of a sudden he didn't have to deal with that anymore. And his excitement about that and how he has a zest for life now. And he knows that it might be over for him at any time. He's not thinking that he's a superhero or anything, or that he's more special than anybody else. And he comes up with a 100 things I want to do before I become a zombie. And he starts thinking about all the things that he could have done in his life that he had not done. And he starts writing them down in a journal. And he goes out and does them. It's really simple shit. And a lot of it is goofy. He wanted to admit that he had a crush on somebody before. So he went out there and found the woman that he had a crush on. She was already a zombie, but he told her that he already had a crush on her. And it was cute. in the sadness of it, it was still very cute. So it's not, there's some, element of how are we going to survive? How are we going to eat and all this kind of stuff. But a lot of that is taken care of. He finds ways to eat. His apartment is never overrun with zombies or anything like that. He mostly goes out and creates his own problems by leaving his leaving his house. He needs supplies, so he'll leave and go get some stuff or whatever. And they still do the jump scares of the zombies, but it's not about the zombies, it's about Tendo. So in episodes 6 and 7, which are my favorite episodes so far, he runs into his boss. His boss has survived the zombie apocalypse and is running sort of a town, I guess you could say, where he's gotten a way for everybody to survive and everything. And he Tendo and his team, his friends, they get an RV because they're going to live in an RV because he always wanted to have an RV so he can drive around and not be stuck in one place. But then the chief, as he's called, busts the tires on the RV and basically put him in like an indentured servitude where he has to work for him for 2 days until the tires get fixed. And basically he falls back into the being worked to death mode because he's scared of this guy. He's not sure how to assert himself, which is typical of Japanese protagonist, where he's a normal guy in an abnormal situation. So he's not sure how to assert himself, how to stand up to people who are bullying him and picking on him and all this kind of stuff. And throughout these episodes, he is being picked on, and you could tell that all of the trauma that he had experienced working, that he had thought he had gotten rid of, it's come back. So and he ends up having to find the strength to leave this overbearing, abusive boss. And it's just a goddamn inspiring show. Like, it's special. It's very good. Zom 100. I know they came out with an actual movie, which I think Special J is talking about here. They came out with a movie, a live action movie. I haven't watched it, but I know it exists. I probably will watch it eventually. I may watch it after this stream because but Zom 100 is legit. It's pretty good, man. If you're on the fence about watching it, you should watch it. The characters are likable. They're deep characters. They have layers to them. It's not about super horror crap. It's more of a comedy show, and you're gonna really like the characters. You're gonna want those characters to succeed, and you want to like those characters to do various things and achieve all of these things that are on the list. You want them to actually do those things, and you want them to survive. So it's really good shit. I promise. Some people are probably going to tell me to read the manga. I simply don't have time. I got enough manga as it is. I don't know. I want to add more, especially ongoing ones to this. Lights, do you need to read the manga to understand Zom? No, you don't. If you watch the first episode, you pretty much get it. The first episode of Zom 100 usually will give it to you, and you'll understand the story. You should like the characters after the first episode. If you don't, then the second will definitely get you. And it's a simple story, which is I think people underestimate simplicity. People like simplicity. The thing that held me back from watching it and taking it seriously was that it was a zombie story. I was tired of zombies. But once you take the zombies out of it, they're a very important part of the story, don't get me wrong. But once you take the zombies out of it, it's just a story of a guy who has learned to live his life. And it just so happens that zombies are in the way. That's just kind of how it is. Like, he legitimately wants to go out and live, because he's been working this, job that's been kicking his ass all this time. He wants to go out and live, man. And if you work at in a cubicle or something like that, you might actually feel the same way. So you could tell definitely that the mangaka studied Wall Street and very tough middle management or lower management office jobs, and use that as the inspiration for this series, because he is exactly like those characters. He's very mild mannered, he's very out of the way, always abused, always picked on, and he's gotta learn to overcome it. It's very good. All right, so I also watched Dead Man Wonderland, which was a 12 episode anime from 2010. Apparently, the show, I was going to buy the manga. I saw the manga and I was like, huh, I wonder if the manga's any good. But I know I had watched this thing before, but I couldn't remember it. So I watched it again. So I spent a couple of days watching Dead Man Wonderland. And it's a story of a kid named Ganta who was framed for the murder of his friends. He's like 12 years old. So that tells you right there, we're already off to a roaring start. There's a 12-year-old accused uh, killer. And even though all these people were killed all at once. So once you take that into account, that he's framed for a murder that kills all of his classmates at one time. And somehow he doesn't die. And you're like, And you go through the corrupt system, and he ends up in this jail. And it's a high-tech private jail where he's, and then at that point it becomes a survival show. And he has to learn how to survive in this prison as a kid. And he's given the powers, the blood powers, they call it the badges of sin or whatever, or the wages of sin or whatever, the branch of sin, where they can do weird things with their blood. And it starts out like it's an interesting show. I think the main character is way too young, but I've been watching in the English dub version, and it's incredibly edgy. I'm talking like, you motherfuckers, fuck you. And it's like, these are like little kids talking like this. Wait a minute. I don't know if I like that. But Dead Man Wonderland was on Adult Swim. I would pretty much, I don't think I watched Adult Swim at that point. But it's not terrible, but it's not great either. I see why there's only one season. I heard from poking around that they diverted from the manga quite a bit, which led to the cancellation of both the manga and the anime. That's why the manga didn't go as long as it probably would have, and why the anime was cut at 13 episodes. They had a 13 episodes and an OVA, and that happened because they diverted too much from the manga when the anime was created. But I generally think it was okay. I think the concept was there to make it much better than it really ended up being. But I think part of it was that the characters were far too young. For him to be 12 or something like that, come on. It'd been a much richer story if he was 17 or 16 or something. But that's anime shit, We start out when he's really, really young, so he learns about his powers, and then we go from there. But the series is okay. You're not missing anything if you didn't watch it. Now the manga, I haven't read it, so I don't know if the manga is any good. I'm kind of on the fence about reading the manga. I think it's 13 volumes, but I haven't heard anything about it. So I haven't heard good things about the manga. So I'll get around to it if I get around to it. We'll see. I felt that way about Black Lagoon too. Like, I loved Black Lagoon, the anime, but I hadn't read the manga. And now I went to a comic book shop and I came across book 6 of Black Lagoon. I thought, oh my God, is this like a new manga? Turns out no. For some odd reason, this comic book shop decided to just buy book 6 of Black Lagoon. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, just 6. And then nothing after 6. So it's just 6. So they're sitting with like 10 issue 6s on the shelf. No issue 1s. And I thought, okay, well, like it's like Fairy Tale or something like that, where they started it over, or it's a sequel or something like that. No, it's just this comic book shop decided they like issue 6 of Black Lagoon, and they ordered 10 fucking issues of 10 fucking versions of it. So because I looked, I'm going to get the first 5 eventually, and then I'm going to read Black Lagoon. I like crime, so, and it seems to be right up my alley. So I'm gonna end up reading it all, because I ended up buying one of the issue 6s, the volume 6s. What else we got here? I think that's about it in terms of things that I've completed. I think next week I want to talk about the movie The Great White Hype, because I forgot how good that movie was, how fun it was, until I watched it over the weekend. So next week we're going to probably put a little bit of a spotlight on the movie The Great White Hype. So that ought to be fun. I don't really have anything specific that I'm watching now in terms of anime or I'm reading manga, but I'm taking my time going to the comic book shop. Like I think I have My Hero Academia, what's that, 36 or 35 or whatever, sitting in my comic book shop. There's another book there too. I don't know what it is though. I think it might be either Chain Soldier, what they call or a Slave Soldier, as I think they called it Chained, or Succubus and Hitman or something like that. It's just sitting in the comic book shop. I'll go get it eventually. I did order Hellsing. They're reissuing Hellsing the manga. So they solicited the first 2 volumes, and I ordered those. I also ordered the Trigun manga that they're reissuing. Those are a little bit more expensive, but since you don't get Trigun in terms of manga that often, I'm going to end up getting that too. So we're looking forward to that. As far as stuff that's sitting in my stack, I've got the first 3 volumes of Parasite. I'm going to start reading that eventually. Walter Simonson's Orion, a comic book from DC. I read the first volume already. Walter Simonson is so good. You know, it's very Kirby-esque in his writing and art. He's a much better writer than Kirby, though. So, but I love the art. The art is very Kirby-esque. It took me a while to get the second volume, but I have the second volume of Orion now, and I'm reading through that. I just started that today. After Orion, I'm probably going to read volume 2 of Chuck Dixon's Robin series. So that ought to be interesting. I'm reading now Tim Hornbaker's book on Ric Flair called The Last Real World Champion, The Legacy of Nature Boy Ric Flair. Very good book so far. I read the book Todd is God, which was written by Todd Gordon and Sean of Kayfabe Commentaries. A solid book. It's some structure issues, but mostly a solid book. I still haven't chewed my way through Attack on Titan. I promise I'm probably going to start working on that this week too. The second volume of the Lupin III anthology is called Thick as Thieves. I read that too. That was very good. in terms of manga. I didn't get volume 1. I don't know why. I'm gonna get it eventually, but I got the second volume. It's pretty good. And I think that's it. I think that's all I got for this episode. So, oh yes, I did. I have the. I got a comic book that was interesting. Okay, 2 comic books that are interesting. We're gonna close on these. So we might actually close up at 10 o'clock this time. I got Blade by Brian Hill. The first 2 books of Blade, the new Marvel series, have been very good. Brian Edward Hill, or Brian Hill, wrote a Killmonger comic book series, what was this, a couple of years ago, that was so fucking awesome that he gained with me some credibility. So when I heard he was going to write Blade, I gave it a shot. Issue 1, read it. It was good, not great. I decided I was probably going to trade wait. Then I heard good things about issue 2 of Blade, and then I read it. It's very good. We're going to buy it every month now. So Blade is very good. It's probably one of the better Blade solo series that has ever been written, because I've read a lot of the Blade solo stuff, especially the modern Blade stuff. It's not very good. This is very good. This is good. So Blade number 2 from Marvel Comics. I know it might come back to bite me in the ass later on, telling people to read Marvel Comics. I know it happened with Daredevil. Haven't happened with Moon Knight yet, but Daredevil ended up biting me in the ass. Oh yeah, I did read Daredevil and Elektra Volume 2. It's good, but you have to ignore Daredevil's absolute hatred of rich people, which is dumb. There's some real stupid things in there. Okay, him trying to rehab villains and all this stuff about Daredevil being anti-prison all of a sudden. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. So, Chip Zdarsky. Is it Chip Zdarsky who's writing Daredevil right now? Let me take a look. I think it is Chip Zdarsky. He started writing Daredevil to be like this crazy left-wing guy. I mean, that started happening a long time ago. It is not just started with him. But now Daredevil is anti-prison. But the reason is not just he's anti-prison because morally it's incorrect or anything like that. He just feels like if you create a better environment for criminals, they will be better people. So he creates a team, basically the Thunderbolts. They don't call it the Thunderbolts, but essentially that's the team. It's got Stiltman and all these other characters in it, where they're going to go to war with these other characters, with Daredevil and all this kind of stuff, as proof that he has rehabilitated them after he broke them out of jail. And the reason he did this is because he felt like jail wasn't fixing the problem. That, these guys need to learn how to live at a certain life and change their environment, etc. And that we keep doing the same things over and over again. We're going to keep getting the same results. We keep beating up the criminals, locking them up, and they don't change. At least I understand that. There's at least some element of, you know what? Okay, I can see why you may get frustrated, because we've been doing the same thing for years and years and years, and now it's not working out. You want to try something different. But he was breaking these guys out of jail. Like, he wasn't letting them finish their sentence and then bringing them into wherever he was doing. He was breaking them out of jail. And it's like, it's stupid. Like, it's real stupid. And it really soured me on the series. And I'm like, he wouldn't. Daredevil is a guy who does dance on the line of law and justice. These two things are not the same, And as a lawyer, he understands the law and the limitations of the law. As a crime fighter, he gets to deliver actual justice, which is giving to people what is their due. You beat the shit out of a guy who probably needs the shit kicked out of him. All right. But now he's breaking the law because he doesn't believe that the law is good enough anymore. He might as well be the fucking Punisher, right? But at the same time, he's a super leftist, so he's breaking into these prisons and breaking these guys out and giving them these. He's trying to be a therapist and all this. He's a social worker in a costume at this point, you know. And I'm like, I don't, I don't know about that. I don't think I like it, but at least I understood why the decisions were being made and stuff was happening. So it's okay. I did order volume 3. I probably will finish it on out. Uh, he's been doing good, but these people, some of them are good with their politics. Other ones aren't. The Daredevil book is at least still pretty good. Now to close us up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No, not that. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They had a 30th anniversary comic. It's an anthology. And I didn't know about it until I was in the store just walking around. And I bought it. It was $10. I don't know why I paid so much for it. I wish I hadn't. But it was $10. And it's a nice book that shows you, the Power Rangers. It talks a little bit about the characters, their futures, their presents, their past, and this kind of stuff. The art is very nice in all of them. There's a story in here about Alpha, where he has to find his and create his own prime directive because he was created without one. You learn about the terrible futures that are possible if Lord Zed wins, and then it gives you this prequel to the new series called Ranger Academy, where Billy, the Blue Ranger from the original series, is the new teacher for the newer Power Rangers. And let me tell you that was not good. That was legit shit. Other than that, it was not worth $10. That's for sure. So if you see it in a comic book shop or something like that, you're like, ooh la la, it's not worth $10. But it wasn't awful, you know. So it is what it is. We're gonna close up at 10 o'clock. People have been asking me wrestling questions, and I could have sworn I've answered a lot of these questions before. Do I prefer Kane masked or unmasked? I don't mind that he was unmasked. I just don't like how they did it. It's just Triple H wasn't the right guy. Stone Mexican guy. Do you think Cody Rhodes is overhyped? I personally hate Cody. Cody is disingenuous. That's the thing about it, is everything comes across as being very fake with Cody. So it is what it is. Favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles character, Raphael. I'm a Raphael guy. I also like Casey Jones a little bit. Favorite female wrestler right now, Rhea Ripley. 97 DX or 2006 DX? I mean, come on, let's be serious about this. Who the fuck likes DX from 2006? All right, we're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.